Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to this episode of the Movie Crusaders. My name is Sean Wasp. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels, and we are doing a non-spoiler and spoiler review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We're going to do that all in the same video. So first, we're going to do a non-spoiler review, talk about the movie without giving anything away, and then we're going to go right into the spoiler review. Trust me, I will post pictures, spoiler warnings, get the frick out. If you're haven't seen the movie, we're just doing it in one video. It's just easier to edit all this crap in one video, so I had to break it up into two. So we're gonna do a non-spoiler right now. Whether it takes 5 minutes or 15 minutes, who the hell knows? Brian and I both saw the movie hours ago. Not even hours. Well, not even hours ago for me. I maybe like 2 hours out of it. You're like 3 hours out of it. I don't know his thoughts. He doesn't know my thoughts yet. So we're just gonna kind of roll with this. Now, Brian and I are both in agreement when it comes to Ant-Man that the movies are just kind of like I think the first Ant-Man was good for what it was, which was a very contained burglar movie, and Ant-Man and the Wasp was forgettable as shit. Did not really need to happen except to introduce Hope as Wasp, which they kind of did at the end of Ant-Man 1, and that to me the third act finale was basically just a game of keep away, which is stupid to do. And it's one of those where it's like, if you go back and rewatch the MCU, you can pretty much skip the Ant-Mans. You agree with that concept for the most part?
Well, yeah. I mean, because the Ant-Man movies, like you said, they've always been like, even the director says they've always been kind of the palate cleansers of the MCU, and that's why I wanted this movie to be like more serious and a bigger thing. Because the first one, yeah, it was kind of its own little thing. It was just kind of a fun movie. It was definitely leaned more into the comedy, of course, when you cast Paul Rudd as your lead, and then you have Michael Pena and these people in there. But it was fun, but I enjoyed the action to it and everything. It was kind of something unique. Ant-Man and the Wasp, I mean, I had a couple of problems. One, it was coming right after Infinity War. So you're going from gigantic spectacle to this game of keep away movie. Which it's like, I still enjoyed the characters. They had fun. You got to see Hope become the Wasp. You got to see Michelle Pfeiffer show up, and things like that. There are things about it I liked, and of course you got Ghost, who is apparently going to be in Thunderbolts, so apparently she's going to come. I mean, I wasn't that impressed with the character in that movie, but who knows? But again, it wasn't a bad movie, because like I always say, even the worst MCU movies outside of Eternals is still a pretty damn good movie.
That's very true. Like I said, we are very pro MCU here.
Yeah.
It's very hard for us to really dislike an MCU movie. Now, TV shows are a different story, but the movies, it's very hard for us to dislike it. Even like I said, the worst ones were like, it's fine. I just don't like it. It's just it's not a horrible film.
I wouldn't even say I don't like it. I'd say it's fine. It's just not like one of my favorites.
It's not something I'm gonna go back and rewatch as much as like the other ones where I've watched them, countless times. Going into Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, this one definitely, the stakes, at least in trailers, looked incredibly high. We get the introduction to Kang the Conqueror, which everyone who watched the TV series saw Kang in Loki, or at least a version of Kang in Loki season 1. But introducing him into movie form, because like I said, a lot of people don't watch the shows, even though they should. That was more one of those things, and obviously the dark kind of tone that this movie was going into, because it definitely didn't have that many laughs in the trailers, and it definitely looked like potentially someone's not coming out of this thing scot-free. Scott, but did not even mean to do that. But yeah, this was definitely one that was up on my high anticipation list because of the trailers and because Jonathan Majors is just so freaking fire in everything he's in. And I really was excited to see him as Kang, and even more so in this version of Kang. What were your, like I said, we both saw it in 3D. I will say the Avatar, when I went and saw Avatar in 3D, the trailer for this is what sold me on watching this in 3D. Not as nearly as good 3D as Avatar was. 3D's fine. But one thing that I'll state, and this might just be my theater, I don't know if it is for you, when you watch this in 3D, is it just me, or do you notice the imperfections of the screens a lot more? Because like I look past the images and I'm like, I can see like stains on the screen here.
I don't think so. I mean, I noticed that in 2D and 3D movies, but I will say in 3D that it's always, even though it's better now than like when it first hit big in like 2009 with the first Avatar and things.
Yeah.
It used to be you wear the glasses and everything was so much dimmer, and it's like it sucked all the color out of the movie and things like that. It didn't have that brightness, that contrast to it. And now while it's not nearly as bad, they brightened things up and they've compensated for it better, things like that. It still, I think, does kind of dim it a little bit, and I think makes the picture a little fuzzier too. Like I was walking through a store today and saw in their big TV section, they had the trailers running for it. And I thought, man, this is going to look great in 3D, the crystal clear and everything like that. Then when I actually watched it in 3D in the theater, I'm like, it's not nearly as clear. It's kind of a little not blurry, but not as clear as on the TV.
I would say, like, when you first get into the quantum realm, the 3D really is boom there. You're noticing the depth perception, everything. But it felt like as the movie went on, I felt less and less.
Well, that's me for every 3D movie, including Avatar or anything else. For me, anytime I see a 3D movie, for the first 20 minutes, half hour maybe, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Look at the depth of field, things like that. And after a while, I'm just like, I'm not even noticing it anymore.
Yeah, because the whole third
Get used
act,
to it, I guess.
Yeah, the whole third act, I didn't notice it barely at all. I did notice, though, if you look down at your phone, which I was doing it during the credits, not during the movie, because I refuse to do that. If you look at with those glasses, if you looked at your phone, oh my god, headache inducing. It is it weird colors emerge. So if anything, go to 3D. Less chance of people being on their phones, unless they're doing this. At that point, you're fucking stupid. But going into the actual film, the general plot for anyone who doesn't know is Ant-Man, or Scott Lang, is living the good life right now. He's an author. He's not really doing the superhero stuff anymore. He's kind of doing the almost like the Spider-Man 2 Tobey Maguire thing, where it's like raindrops keep everything's working, because he's not Spider-Man anymore, kind of thing. Hope is fucking doing great things. She took over Pym. They're both basically just living their best lives. And then Cassie, now being played by Catherine Newton, who I'm a huge fan of, is basically kind of taken over the reins of her dad. She keeps getting in trouble with police, but she's using like Pym particles and stuff, but under the supervision for the most part of Hank and sometimes Michelle Pfeiffer's Janet. But then when she and I'll talk about this more in the spoiler review, but basically she creates this signal carrier for the quantum realm. Yeah. What's that?
It's in the trailers. That's fine.
Well, no, I'm talking about there's an actual part in it that I actually want to talk about. That's a spoiler thing. But basically, she creates a signal thing in the quantum realm, and they end up getting sucked into it, and they all four get sucked into the quantum realm, and boom, there's the movie. And Kang the Conqueror, played by Jonathan Majors, is there, and that's as much as I can go into without going into spoiler-esque territory in terms of the film. So that's the general plot. Brian, what were your, like I said, non-spoiler thoughts?
Well, going into the movie, like seeing the trailers, things like that, it was I could see the whole thing taking place in this quantum realm, which is like this cosmic kind of atmosphere, which has never been my kind of thing. With the goofy looking aliens, and even things like Avatar, where they have like
Guardians, though. You like it with Guardians.
To some extent, but sometimes they make like the funny faced aliens, things like that, or the weird plant life things like that. And I'm not really largely a fan of that kind of thing, generally speaking. And so I knew I wasn't really going to enjoy that setting part of it. And like I said, Ant-Mans have always been kind of fine. They haven't been my favorite characters or anything like that, although I enjoy them. They're fun. Mm-hmm. So I went in this and generally speaking, non-spoiler, I basically, it was exactly what I expected. I enjoyed the movie. I thought that I liked the parts like before they went into the quantum realm, when it was focusing on just kind of his life and his family and a little bit more lighthearted, more comedic moments. I enjoyed that part. Once they got to the quantum realm, it became kind of all this, space opera kind of thing. And I didn't like that stuff as much. I do like the introduction of this version or another version of Kang. I think Jonathan Majors is a good actor. He did a great job with this. I didn't like everywhere they went with that, but we'll go into that in the spoiler part. Catherine Newton, who I've been a fan of all since like *Halt and Catch Fire*. I think it's the first place I saw her, and then of course in things like *Freaky* and
*Supernatural*.
I'm sorry,
*Supernatural*.
Oh, I didn't watch.
That's where I first got introduced to her. Was
*Halt and Catch Fire*, and then there's another movie that's just skipping my mind. Anyway, But no, I actually like the entire cast. I especially love seeing a lot more Michelle Pfeiffer. She had a lot more to do in this
She
movie.
definitely
And
has a lot more.
I've been missing seeing Michelle Pfeiffer in major roles for a long time. She kind of, did her 80s and 90s. 2000s kind of disappeared, and then for most of the 2010s, honestly, until Ant-Man. Well, actually, until Ant-Man and the Wasp. But just seeing the scenes, especially some of the early scenes where you got to see a lot of her, and she was like really getting in the action, kind of driving the plot. I was really enjoying that. I'm so glad to see Michelle Pfeiffer back in the lead role again. Those are my first general thoughts. What were you thinking?
Yeah, it was. I'm kind of almost inclined to agree with you, which is shocking that we're almost like kind of on the same page. Now I'm sure when we go into spoiler, we're going to find some more things we're going to differentiate about. But it was one of those things where the quantum realm looks really cool. It does. I mean, visually. I mean, it's all green screen crap, but I mean, visually, it looks really cool. But and I've seen a lot of people kind of preface this with early reviews. Not that I read them, but you always see like the headline kind of thing, and everyone kept deferring this as the MCU's version of Star Wars. And I was like, I don't buy that. Like, that's not at all. And then the movie kind of got into it. I was like, okay, I can see the similarities of a Star Wars as thing.
Yeah.
Kang got his own versions of like stormtroopers in this world, and then much like
I don't think anybody was saying it was Star Wars, like it was on par with Star Wars. They're saying it's that type of story, and
I'm not saying that they saw the
I totally see that.
MCU's version of Star Wars, but like I said, Kang's got some stormtrooper-esque kind of goons. And it's a lot like when they went to Tatooine for the first time. There's all these creatures and aliens and stuff like that. But the problem is with that is that a lot of it's just there to just be weird and distracting, and less about like, look over there, look over there, look over there, look at this guy, look at this guy. He's funny looking, and it's one of those things where it's like they have these characters that they kind of focus more on, and the quantum realm characters. But it's the same kind of issue is that, look, the chances of us ever going back to the quantum realm is relatively slim and none. So it's hard to really care about these characters. It's hard to care whether they live or die or character growth for these characters because you're never going to see these characters again. And so it got to the point where it was like, okay, you're either not giving us enough of it to care about it, or B, you're focusing too much on certain things that ultimately don't matter except for a subplot in the movie that really just kind of not drags the movie, because it doesn't drag. The movie's actually not as long as I went in without knowing the runtime, and I expected it to be a lot longer than what it was. When I actually went into the third act, I was like, oh, wow, we're already here.
Well, my only thing is it felt like the movie was ending, and there were shots in the trailer. I'm like, this isn't over yet, because there's this whole thing in the trailer.
Well, yeah, I was like, unless they cut out a ton of the trailer, there's some stuff that was missing. But I just felt like the quantum realm stuff, while visually looked good, was unnecessary and just kind of like garnish on a big plate. It's there to look good, but it really doesn't ultimately matter. Now, when we had general character moments, like you said, the beginning with Cassie and Scott, and that dynamic at the beginning, I really liked that. And even they had a little dinner table scene, which very Back to the Future. I bet Brian loved that. But I like those moments. And then when Kang does show up, that is definitely when the movie kicks into a new gear, because Jonathan Majors, not saying he's up there with the top villains of the MCU yet, but because we know we're going to get more of him, he will be there by the time we get to that point. But once he finally gets into the film, the movie does change its tone, and it definitely is more, the stakes definitely get raised. But some of the best parts of this movie isn't the action set pieces and stuff that's happening outside in the quantum realm. It's these tight in a room scene where you're not being distracted by all this the CGI and green screen, and it's just two characters talking or three characters talking, or a fight between characters in a room without all the nonsense around it. When they literally kept it tight and kept it focused, those are the best parts of the film for me. And some of the best acting in the film as well. But there's just so much of all this other crap going. I don't want to call it crap. There's just so much other things going on that, like, in the movie, you're like, ooh, pretty. But then once you get out of the film, you're like, was any of that necessary? I don't think it was. I just don't think it was necessary. It wasn't needed for this. And I'll hand it back over to you now.
No, I mean, we actually covered most of what I can cover in the non-spoiler, but
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. Like while I said I didn't enjoy the look, I wasn't going pretty. I was going ugh, ugh, for large for the for
Yeah.
the uh, for the look of it. But I agree that it was the smaller moments, it was the interaction, it was the conversations were the best part of the movie, and that's where it comes down to. You know, Ant-Man has always been a smaller scale, pun not intended there, a
Yeah.
smaller scale, uh, kind of thing, a more personal story and movie. And they decided this time we want to have a grandiose. I think the word the director was using was an Avengers level movie, which this is not an Avengers level movie.
Not by a long
There,
shot.
there are things that set up the future, but even then, it wasn't really needed in this movie. But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But it feels like they tried to take it and tried to make it into something bigger than it was, honestly. And which again does not mean that I did not enjoy the movie. I enjoyed the movie, and
Yeah.
definitely in a thumbs up, thumbs down world, it's definitely a thumbs up for me. But it's still going to be a lower tier MCU movie for me.
Yeah.
But again,
It's
that's still a good movie.
it's one of those things where it's like at the end of the movie, did I go, oh, I didn't like that? No, I was like, I actually enjoyed it. It was more driving home and thinking about it and like thinking big picture and
Mhm.
not just per movie. Like most people that who aren't like super into the MCU, they're thinking like one movie at a time. That was fun. That was great. Perfect for you. That's awesome. For me and for Brian, who we're thinking the whole scale. It was for me, I don't think it was the story they should have told for Kang. I think they could have come up with a better story for that. And while they were advertising this as a big Avenger-esque kind of event, it really isn't. Because
It really isn't.
by the end of the film, you're like, this is still a very tight kind of story, bigger in terms of what happens in it. But by the end of it, you're like, this is still a very, tight knit, wrapped in a bow kind of thing, to the point where it's like, could this be something that we think about in 4 or 5 years, like how Age of Ultron, which is a movie that you and I defend greatly, where it's like, at that moment, did it all connect? No, but 5 years down the road, when we got to all these stories, like, dude, like Age of Ultron was the crux that set up everything. Is this movie going to do that? We don't know yet. Do I think it is? No. But at the end of the day, I still enjoy this movie. Now, in terms of the Ant-Man films, I think Ant-Man 1 did the formula of Scott Lang and Ant-Man correctly and did it the best way. But if I have Ant-Man 1 and I have Quantumania next to me and I have to choose which one to watch, I'm probably going to watch Quantumania because
Really?
Jonathan Majors and stuff like that. And it's just more exciting. But the better film is the first Ant-Man. And then we don't just need to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I'd probably still rank Ant-Man 1 the best. This one, I had a hard time determining which one I would prefer, this one or Ant-Man and the Wasp, because both of them I kind of have equal thoughts on, in that they're both enjoyable movies. They're both nothing I really plan to revisit very often, just because I didn't love them. And I know you talk about how me and you tend to think about it like a lot of people, more in a connected idea. And I wonder if that's part of the problem, is they've set themselves up as this Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's like, if we took each of these films and it was just their solo films, I don't know if maybe we would even enjoy them more, but we're trained to think about it like, oh, how is this going to fit
well,
into the bigger
that
universe?
you
Because
drop the title. You
it
drop
seems
the
like
title
they've totally
Avengers
lost
King
their
Dynasty.
focus.
Yeah.
It's
Drop
like
the title Avengers King Dynasty, and he's like, we know this isn't the end, so we know we're trained to build
right.
on top of it.
But
You
it just
know,
seems like it almost feels like this whole last phase of Marvel. It's kind of felt like it has no focus, and they keep saying, "Oh, maybe the pieces will fall into place later on." And it's like, I don't know. It almost feels like that, like 2000s era of superhero movies, where they just take a character and make a movie, take a character and make a movie, and nothing was connected, and that was fine. It didn't have to be connected, but it's like, because now we're trained to expect them to be. It's like, well, are these? How long are you gonna wait before you start showing us how these fit together? Because it's not happening right now.
yeah, and I mean, and then every time we have a kid, it's like, oh, Young Avengers, or if we have a character that's a little in the middle, it's like, oh, Thunderbolts. It's like, you guys keep saying this Thunderbolts and this Young Avengers is going to happen. By the time Young Avengers happens, these Young Avengers are going to be the same age as the
I
Avengers.
hope Young Avengers really doesn't happen, or I hope it just happens as a Disney Plus series, because it's like, it if they are intentionally just throwing together all these young people with powers just to make a Young Avengers movie, it just seems to me that's just like telling everybody else, like, oh, we don't, we're just going to move on to this and forget the other people. It's like, ugh, I don't want that.
Yeah, so I mean, nitpicks aside,
Yeah.
we both still enjoyed the film. We both recommend the movie. Brian doesn't really do scores, but I mean, he does do a star rating. How would you rate this star wise?
I still gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, and I'm around there too. Like it's I do more percentages. I would say it's between like a 66, 67%. I'll say 67 right now. Now, by the time we get done talking the spoiler review, it might drop down a little bit. It depends on how that conversation goes. But yeah, it's 3.5 stars. It's definitely is. Like the first Ant-Man, I gave 3.5 stars to. I would say it's right. You know, it's definitely not going to be better than that, but it's not necessarily worse. It's just different. But I think I prefer the tight-knit burglar story over what we got. And yes, I know a lot of people want to talk about a very specific character that happens in the movie, but you know what? We're going to say that for the spoilers. So that is going to be it for the non-spoiler review. If you guys have seen the movie and you guys want to know what we thought about it spoiler-wise, it's coming right up. Or if you guys just like, I don't care about going to go see this, go ahead and spoil the whole movie. We're definitely going to be doing that. So this, for anyone who just wants to know non-spoiler, you guys can go ahead and cut this now. Go watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, come back, watch the spoiler review, see what we thought. So this is your spoiler warning, pictures, flashes, blah, 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 okay? We are now going to spoil the fucking movie. So if you guys locked in, you're good? Okay, let's go. So for me, I'll do the, I don't know, because usually you and I, we start from the beginning, we go all the way the fuck through, and then other times we jump all around. The one thing I want to talk about earlier in the spoiler review with Cassie, is it just me, or is like every fucking kid like a fucking genius of Stark's level? Like,
Every character in the MCU these days is a super genius, and of course now, you got you know Riri Williams, and now you get Cassie Lang, things like this.
Freaking Miss Marvel's best friend. You know,
and everybody's a super genius, which, you know, I'm great. You know, teach kids that being smart is cool. That's wonderful. But
I'm sorry, I don't buy nothing against Cassie as a character. I don't buy Cassie as someone who built this thing, like this Nobel Prize like esque kind of thing in the garage.
He's described it as a Hubble telescope for the quantum realm.
I'm like,
and it's like it took teams of, you know, hundreds of scientists decades to build a regular Hubble telescope.
And she built this. What, within a year?
With scraps in a cave. No, I mean in a basement.
A block of scraps in a cave. But it's like, it was one of those things where he says that, and I'm like, couldn't you have said that you guys worked on that together? Because you made it
kind of did, but still, it's like,
he gave all the credit to Cassie. I was like, okay, can we? Because Cassie's definitely not acting like she's a genius, and not that she's acting dumb, but you know what I mean. But it's one like that line went in there. I'm like, why is every single kid like just this, like, I mean, I think the only one that technically wouldn't be considered like this brilliant genius would be Miss Marvel and probably freaking Kate Bishop. They're still very clever, but they're not like genius level.
She's smart and she's skilled, but she's not,
but she's not like, I'm gonna build
Here's the thing is, the other thing is it could have been, I think if they should have stressed more that she worked on it with Hank Pym and then maybe he did more of the work, and she just kind of helped him out or something, because they should have had it be like he's the one who made it, honestly, because the fact that she is this genius doesn't play into anything in the entire rest of the movie.
It doesn't. Her being a rebel and like getting arrested for defending the homeless and the protest stuff, that greatly builds into the rest of the film. But her being this like incredibly ingenious kind of a character, no, that doesn't
play into anything else in the movie. And with the other thing about Cassie that bugs me, and I know people say, oh, this happened in the comics. Okay, now you got another person with another Ant-Man suit, and it's like they're just handing out suits to everybody these days. Between this one where you now Ant-Man's nothing special because there's at least two other people with the same suit he has.
Not even that. He's the least effective because
he can
fly, and she has shooters.
Hope can fly. Hope can fly and has shooters, and he doesn't. But he can grow big. Hope can't grow big, I don't think.
No, well, we don't know if she can.
But she can, and Cassie apparently can. So it's like, okay, everybody gets a suit. And between that and like, okay, you first had Iron Man, who had like, you know, he had his suit that he built. And then next thing you know, he had it like, oh, it came out of the suitcase and it formed, and you know, he could form on him, like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Nanotech.
Next thing you know, it's nanotechnology. So anytime they watch this, boom, just cover it, and the helmets appear out of nowhere and everything. I'm like, okay, this is getting kind of dumb. I don't really like the nanotech idea. But then they go and they turn Spider-Man's costume into essentially an Iron Man suit, and then you have
Well, not
Wakanda
anymore
Forever.
now. Not anymore.
Well, not anymore, but
Not
but
anymore.
the one we've seen so far though was.
Yeah.
And then Wakanda Forever, they were just handing out suits left and right. I mean, besides Black Panther basically having the nanotechnology suit, you have Riri Williams is building her own Iron Man suit. You have like Nakia and the entire Dora Milaje is now basically wearing Iron Man suits. It's like, come on, people, just have some differentiation.
That's the thing. That's the thing too. Now is that Ant-Man's suit is that because he pulls it out of his pocket and basically does this, which begs the question. That'd be one thing if it was like Iron Man where the whole thing is connected, but the helmet comes off. So how does the helmet? It doesn't make sense. And I know this is like nerdy, like, but I'm just saying it's like.
But it just seems lazy that everybody can just like basically push a button and it just forms on them. It's
one thing because like
it's not tactile anymore.
Well, because like when they're doing the one part, where like Scott's talking about how great his life is, like Hope, she like at least does like this, like the suit was under her clothes kind of thing. And then Scott,
she tapped. It formed.
Did she tap? I thought she pulled something off.
Yeah.
I thought she pulled something off. But and then the other part too is like, why doesn't Hank have a suit? Hank doesn't have a suit. Why doesn't Janet have a suit?
Maybe they're too old for the shit.
But still, there's too much crap.
I was waiting for it because, like I said, everybody has
for them to pop out with suits at one point. But here's the part that bugs me: is I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit. So they get sucked into the quantum realm. Obviously, Hope and Scott immediately, boom, hit it, go in. Freaking Cassie has had this suit the whole time. She's sucked in. At that point, they're being attacked. She's running around in a t-shirt and jeans. Why the hell aren't you putting your suit on? Because it's supposed to be a surprise. Like, no, we know she's got a suit.
Because she was like hiding it from her dad because she didn't want him to know she had a suit. But when you're plummeting to your death, and you don't know that your dad's going to grow big and catch you, she could have grown big and died.
And when they're being shot at by Kang's goons, and she's just running around with no protection, and then all of a sudden, like at the last second, like you could chalk it up to her being not trained to think, and she's just so like scatterbrained that she just doesn't think to pull it out. But it's like, I'm looking at my dad and I see he's got the suit on, I realize, oh shit, I got my suit too. Boom, turn it on. Because like it was like, because the whole time I'm like, do they make her a suit like in the quantum realm? Because I know she has a suit. Because it got to the point where I was like, I was getting more and more kind of annoyed going, where the fuck's her suit? Not that I need her to have one, but I know she has one. And why is she still running around in danger without protection?
Yeah, I assumed like you that she didn't have it. Like Ant-Man like had some or Hank had some in his pocket he gave to her.
Which, if that's the case, I would have been totally fine with. But knowing that she had it the whole flipping time, makes no sense to me. Now the opening with Scott, I mean, granted, most of that was in the trailer, but I liked that. You know, like I said, him walking around the perfect life, his book reading, I thought was hilarious kind of thing. And I really liked that conversation in the car where Cassie kind of, not, I want to say is ripping into him, but you're getting that dynamic right there, because a lot of people are like, well, dude, he was stuck in the corner. I'm like, no, he was a superhero. He lost 5 years, and he was also in jail during her child or during her as a young.
Honestly, though, it's like
the
trailers played up this thing like, oh, I missed 5 years of her life, and you thought that was gonna be like a major driving point of the movie. But honestly, aside from that mention in the car at the beginning, and then at the end in the birthday party, we mentioned he missed 5 years. The fact that he was gone doesn't really feel like it plays in the movie at all. If anything, it plays more into the fact that Hope wasn't that Janet wasn't around for Hope.
And it was more not necessarily that he wasn't around. It was more that he's not being Ant-Man anymore, and that he's stopped being a superhero, and he's now more of a celebrity and not helping people anymore. That was more. Now she threw out that one dagger about him not being around, and that was just more like a teenager just hitting you with it.
That's what I'm saying, though. The trailers played up, though.
Yeah, they played it up.
5 years of your life.
Yeah, they played it massively. Like, that was the whole thing with him and Kang. It's like, look, I'm going to give you time. I'm going to give you this. That, not at all. They're totally misled by the trailer, which I'm not mad at that.
Okay, he doesn't even make that deal with her. He makes that deal with Hope.
Yeah.
To get that time back.
No,
the only deal he makes with... Huh?
He does it with...
That's what I meant, Janet. Sorry. The only deal he makes with Scott is, I won't kill your daughter.
Yeah, I won't kill your daughter, and you guys...
He doesn't offer him time or anything.
No, he's like, you can go home, basically.
Total mislead, yeah.
Which I'm not mad at that, because it
is what it is, yeah.
It gives us something like, oh, that's not what they're doing. But I liked the dynamic between them. And I liked that they also kind of kept Scott in the dark. like it seemed like everyone knew that Cassie was doing this shit except Scott.
Mhm.
So that works too, because it makes it a little more, I guess, believable that she can do these things already, because she's clearly been training and doing stuff, except for her running around like an idiot without her suit on for 20 minutes. But when they do inevitably go into the quantum realm, like I said in the non-spoiler, yeah, like cool world visuals, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. But then it's like, cool, here's a random dude with a broccoli head. Here's a random drink this ooze so you can understand what we're saying. Which, like, okay, Doctor Who. Like, this is such a Doctor Who thing. Like,
well, I get why they did that, because you don't want to sit there and watch subtitles the whole time, but you want to have, you know, why would these aliens just happen to speak English? But at the same time, it's like, that's a really convenient plot device.
It is very convenient. I didn't hate it, but it was just like, okay.
It could have just give the one guy,
the mind reader guy.
Yeah, just give him the ability to be like, ooh, you can understand them now, you know, something.
Yeah, he's like, look, I'll only create a cone thing, which we would still go, okay. But it's one of those things where, and then you have, was the little blob thing David Dashmalin?
Yes, David Dastmalchian. Yes.
How do you not have Louise in this movie? I was expecting him to be in the post-credit scene.
People made a big deal of that, and I honestly feel like
I know he's not part of the story. I know he's not part of the
maybe
story.
at the birthday party at the end or something, but
yeah.
I didn't miss him the way everybody else did. Yes, I loved him in the other movies, but I didn't feel like, oh, this movie missing him, and he would have made it great. Yeah.
No, I think he would have been a good like after credits instead of what we got, which was just like Ant-Man telling him everything. He's like, wait, so you mean to tell me? And then you start having Louise kind of go into it, and then you just cut it.
Or it's the beginning, instead of having Scott telling his own story, have the recap.
Yeah, because it's not like he goes inner monologue at all throughout the movie until the end, which I've got a huge problem with that fucking ending. But we'll wait till we get to that point. But I mean, it's like you get to these characters, you know, you got the blob dude who's really fascinating.
That kind of stuff, the things like the broccoli head and things like that. This is the kind of thing that I really did not like. It's like they get too goofy. It's just dumb.
It's
not as dumb as something else we'll talk about later.
There's no different. It's just random alien races. Which, I mean, granted, Star Wars is like that too. But for some reason, with Star Wars, it just makes sense. And for this, it's just
honestly, even in Star Wars, a lot of the aliens look dumb. I'll be right up front.
Yeah, but I mean, it just makes more sense that way. But where it's like it's down here, it's like it's the quantum realm. It's like, you know, they're not even this big, and you're supposed to believe that like there's all these kind of creatures around there and stuff like that.
Well, it's supposed to be like a whole universe beneath our universe, just like there could be. We could just be a small part of a bigger universe. Things.
Yeah,
like
I mean, it's kind of the whole like the cat's little ball thing in Men in Black.
Yeah,
our whole universe is in there.
Yeah,
but
it's like the characters that I really. I mean, obviously they were playing up Gentora, I believe her name was, like the leader of the.
Yeah, which character I'm just like, once again,
but at least they were playing her up, and she was basically a humanoid character, and William Jackson Harper, who was wasted in this movie.
He is
absolutely wasted. He plays a character called Quaz. He can read minds, and I love the fact that he's like, you know, I can read everyone's mind. I hear everybody's thoughts, and everybody here is just disgusting. Everybody's disgusting. Please stop thinking that.
Stop.
I love that whole part of it. I love him. I've loved him on Good Place. I loved him on what's it called, Love Life, the HBO series, things like that. But he was just like, I saw him in this movie. I'm like, oh, that's great. And then he was like barely used.
And then like even in one moment where he's like, no, he's not a traitor, and he has 7 holes, and you can tell Scott's calculate. Even I was going, yeah, 7 holes. That's right.
And I think I'm like, he's wrong unless you're counting the eyes as being plugged up with the eyeballs. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, the eyes are covered, so it's ear, nostril, mouth, butt, pee. But it's like I'm like, because like as Scott was doing that,
everybody in the theater started counting. They're like,
I totally was. I was counting. It was great. It was hilarious, and I thought Bill Murray played perfect for what he was supposed to be.
I thought Bill Murray was fine, but I also thought it's completely unnecessary. I feel like anybody else in the world could have played this role, and honestly, I think it would have been better with somebody else playing the role, because you put him in the role and you expect him to be Bill Murray, which honestly, Bill Murray hasn't been funny in decades at this point, honestly. But it's
the last time he was funny was probably Zombieland.
He just it's such a small part.
Doesn't matter. It's still great.
But I feel like he was just miscast here. I mean, he was fine, but I just think they could have put anybody in that role. He didn't bring anything to it.
Here's the one thing I had that I was kind of getting frustrated with the film on, which while we praise her because Michelle Pfeiffer's great in the movie. Janet doing this whole like hiding all this shit from like Hope and Hank throughout the film, like they're down there, like he, just stay hidden, don't talk, dude, keep your head down. What's going on? Oh, I'm not gonna tell you what's going on. I'm not gonna tell. Why? Like why are we holding this thing off 20 plus minutes of her giving the exposition dump? Just there's no reason for her character to like. You really think you're just gonna get out of this without explaining what the hell's going on? It's like, why are we beating around this fucking bush with plot when you could just get it out of the way? Now, I get it's an exposition dump, and I get that like she's terrified, but it's like we already know this is going to happen. So having Janet's character continually kind of keep him in the dark through everything that kept going on was just a stupidly written thing for her to have to go through. Because there's no reason for her to held back once they were like already meeting Bill Murray and in the ship and stuff, and they're still holding it back. It's like, and then like you're having all this stuff happen. It's like, just fucking go, just come on already. Like, stop with this shit. There's just no point to it. And there wasn't. There was literally no point to having Janet. Now, in the real world, makes plausible sense. But once they were in the quantum realm, start fucking spilling the beans, man. Because that was 20 minutes of her character just going, I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you. Okay, fine, I'll tell you. It's like there literally was no point to that. I am glad that the now granted it was kind of a Deus Ex Machina kind of thing, but I am glad the ants came back around because like they specifically made the camera focus on the ants.
You knew they were coming back. Yeah,
I kept wondering, like, are the ants ever going to show back up? And then when they did,
because they did that thing, they showed them getting sucked in, and then as soon as the first time you saw Hank kind of like he heard something, I'm like, okay, the ants are around.
I honestly didn't connect that part, but when I saw the leg when he crashed, I was like, fucking ants. Yeah, I was like, there's the ants part. But it was like one of those things where I think we're at the point where we finally get to talk about Kang. You said in this non-spoiler, because I don't know what you're thinking on this. You said there were story elements you liked, but there were story elements you didn't like. I have my opinions as well, but I want to hear what you're.
Well, it's funny. We had just talked earlier this week.
Yeah.
About how this movie is going to. I don't remember the exact wording of it, but how this was going to lead to Kang. Because like unless because we've already seen him in the other movie and things like that, and I think we even said like I suggested, well, maybe this is the movie. Like we theorized that he's stuck in this quantum realm, and this is the movie where he's trying to get out, and that's the whole thing. It's because they haven't revealed his motivations in the trailers, but we kind of theorized that's what it was.
Yeah,
and it turns out we were right.
Which was true. Yeah,
we didn't know at the time that it was because of Janet's actions that he got caught there, but we knew that he wanted to use Scott and these other people to help him get out. I think that I liked the whole thing with him being there. I liked the fact that he had been exiled. I liked the fact that Janet was the one who helped him, and then once she realized, she tried to prevent him from getting out. It was more.
I do think all that really worked as well. I thought all that was really well done. Gave Michelle Pfeiffer some ground.
Yeah, you got to see like the comic accurate costume of the green and purple, and they occasionally had the blue mask instead of the blue face. Obviously, I thought that's one of those things where they translated it very well from what could have looked goofy from the page onto the screen, but it worked. But my thing is his just varying power set and power level, because he could just do this and wipe out people basically, but he didn't when he had the chance to. Like when the ants are coming, he has to put up a force field and fight to hold back, when he could just like do this and basically.
And then they break through and pull his ass away, like they killed him.
And he's walking around just like zapping, just vaporizing it to make him disintegrate on contact. And yet, he has Scott, Hope, and Cassie right in front of him, and he's like, just do it, dude.
No, that's my problem. He did, but it didn't affect them. It knocked him back, but it didn't vaporize him.
Yeah.
There's one part I was like, how the fuck are they gonna fight him if he's vaporizing people with the thing? And then he does hit Scott with it and knocks Scott back like 20 feet, and then he also hits Hope with it. I was like, I get that they have a suit, but that shouldn't protect them from that kind of blast.
Yeah.
And I was gonna wait until we got to the third act battle for that, but
their suits aren't even supposed to be armor. Their suits are just their suits.
They're just supposed to help them shrink and grow big and stuff. But that was the part that was bugging me mostly through this film, which is why I thought it was gonna be dark to the point where it's like Ant-Man ain't gonna survive this fucking fight, because this is Kang the Conqueror. This is supposed to be the Kang that
Destroyer of worlds, yeah.
exactly. But by the end of it, Kang the Conqueror got beat by Ant-Man and Wasp. Thanos would never have lost to Thanos or to Ant-Man and Wasp. Like he should have destroyed them. Because there's times where he's just flicking them away like they're nothing, but then like they have to give them hope. So all of a sudden, like Ant-Man's having a fist fight with him. It's like, dude,
well, that's because the whole implication is that his powers all came from his suit. Because once he got
at the end, like his suit started.
Once she rebooted the ship, his suit reformed, and then she took it out, but he already had a suit back, and so he had all this power and ability. That's when he went on his thing and conquered the world and things like that.
Yeah, because she said I gave him too much, which was his suit.
And then later on, when he broke it, all of a sudden he just had to get in a fist fight. Now, granted, he was way stronger and
yeah, because I mean, it looked like every time he connected on Scott, it looked like Scott was about to die.
Yeah, but then his end basically, felt very much like Scarlet Witch's end, where it's like, maybe they're dead, maybe they're not. We don't know for sure. Well, he's just shrunk down for all we know.
Well, I mean, he got sucked into the thing and it exploded. So, I mean, our mindset, and even the other king said that he died. But that's my
I'll get into a whole different thing when we talk about the post.
That's my problem, is that Kang the Conqueror is supposed to be the Kang that we're dealing with. But when we get to the post-credit scene, like, that's not the Kang we're going to get. So it's like, was it a mislead that Kang the Conqueror was going to be the big bad and it's just going to be a different kind of Kang? Because if that was the case, give us a different Kang then. Give us like a Kang that was like in Loki that's still a bad guy, but not Kang the Conqueror. Because I'd rather have Kang the Conqueror, like that version of Kang, be the Kang, not whatever that one Kang was at the end that was kind of the leader. Because, oh my God. Because
as long as we're talking about it now, let's talk about it now.
Yeah, well, what I did notice though, and this is not a knock, but it was just something that I noticed, his inflections a little bit, I kind of feel like he was almost kind of channeling Forrest Whitaker in Rogue One. Because there were times he was talking.
Oh, in the one Kang, yeah.
No, I'm talking about even when he was doing the first Kang. Like, there's times where he's talking and he's hitting certain pitches. But I was like,
but he didn't have that raspy voice. Like,
yeah, it was like he would do that little kind of thing. I was like, that's a little Forrest Whitaker-y. But nonetheless, like, I really like Jonathan Majors in the role, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do else. But the post-credit scene with like the thousands upon thousands of Kangs, and then you saw some of the Kangs kind of looked like just douchebags in the crowd.
Well, that's the thing is you have you knew Kang Dynasty, it was going to be King Dynasty, and I think we even theorized at one point it's not Kang and his army, it's a bunch of Kangs.
Well, I think we all were in the mindset it was going to be a bunch of Kangs, but I still felt that Kang the Conqueror.
But I thought it would be many of essentially the same guy. Now, granted, like in the Loki one is a little more cerebral, a little more playful. He's kind of bored. He's basically kind of bored with his life. Yeah. And then this one is a little more aggressive and hostile. But this one has somebody in like a King Tut hat. This has one it looks like a cyborg. They have it's like, and then like I said, there's a bunch of just douchebags in the audience. Like,
I was like, no.
And it's like, I don't know if I like that they're going all these weird different versions of Kang, which I'm sure maybe it'll be fun for Jonathan Majors to try and make all these different characters.
I get that, but what I don't want to have happen is when we eventually, and like I said, we're theorizing here. What I don't want to have happen is that eventually when we get to Avengers Kang Dynasty, or whichever one where the Avengers are going to win, is like Age of Ultron, where they're all just mindless Kangs that are just going to get dispatched. And because it's like, then you're defeating.
In theory, every single one of these Kangs should be just as deadly.
Exactly. Just maybe not at certain levels of like killer rulers kind of thing. But the last thing I want to have happen is like, oh, we're at the big battle with the Avengers, and here comes like 100,000 Kangs, and they're just destroying them like they're the Chitauri or the Ultron's robots, where it's just like, oh, that Kang's gone, that Kang's gone. I'm like, no, each Kang should be a final boss battle. Yeah. And when I saw those Kangs, my brain immediately went, oh, fuck, don't do that. That's not going to be good.
Well, that's the other thing is it kind of ties into the other kind of sequence is that honestly, this whole movie doesn't change anything.
That's why I said is that by the
this
end
movie
of it,
did not exist. You have the exact same Kang Dynasty coming.
Yeah, because Loki is the story that's really kind of guiding everything through. If anything, this just gave us a taste of what Kang could be like. But by the end of this, like I said, this is another one of those Ant-Man movies that you can kind of remove this and the story's still going to be the same. Now,
If it had been, if this
died,
movie had been this movie released him, he got out of the quantum realm, and now he's on his way, and he's going to kill people in our world.
Yeah.
It's like that would have been this movie was a pivotal point to this. But as it is, it's like this Kang is theoretically dead.
Yeah.
So basically, the only thing that this movie is doing to set up for anything future is the post-credit sequence, which could have attached to any other movie.
Which
So
is no
the
different
events of this
than
movie affected nothing.
Which was no different than Age of Ultron when Thanos was like, all right, then I'm just going to do this myself kind of thing. That's basically all it was. So it was like, it kind of comes down to this thing where it's like, what was the point of this movie except for just to do a third Ant-Man film?
Which, because, like I've always said, if you want to do just your one-off stories, that's fine, but don't pretend it's a bigger deal than
once again, Ant-Man and the Wasp beat Kang. There was not much to it. Once you destroyed his suit, which the ants did, yes, Kang was fucking up Scott pretty hardcore to the point where it's like, oh, this is a nice little tip off to Creed right here. But then Hope shows up and kind of takes care of him. Without the suit, Hope was kind of kicking his ass. And by the end of it, I was like, wow, like this is supposed to be the new Thanos, but he got owned at the end of this by Scott and Hope. And I'm sorry, Thor could dispatch of him relatively without blinking an eye if he wanted to. Hulk could rip him in two if he wanted to. Because if Ant-Man and the Wasp can beat him, hell, Hawkeye's got a chance. Because Hawkeye's at least trained. Which, that's another thing too, is like, did Ant-Man get some training? Because Ant-Man definitely fought a hell of a lot better than that.
This is the only reason I think that this is a different issue, because this King the Conqueror, as seen in this movie, has the powers of the suit. He was annihilated, things like this. The other Kings, for all we know, they were never seen as these physical threats. They don't have necessarily these powers, things like that. Like I said, the one we saw in Loki was more of just like almost like a watcher.
He's a puppet master.
Yeah, he's a puppet master. He's just playing around because he's basically bored. And then these other ones we see here, obviously they don't have one. They have something on, but we don't know if it's like power suits, things like that. So maybe it's not going to be a physical threat. So maybe it's not going to be like each one of them is. I mean, they should be a boss battle, but it's not going to be the same kind of physical thing. I don't know. This is just theorizing.
Yeah, we have no idea. We're just contemplating based off of what we saw. In theory, this is what it should be like. But and like another thought process is like the Kangs can combine together to make one. But at that point, then they become fucking Dr. Manhattan. Which at that point, then it's like
please don't make comparisons to that.
No, but I'm talking about where he can literally just like do that and destroy everything. But it's one of those things where I was just like, I can't get over the fact that at the end of this, Kang just got dispatched like a normal villain to a point. Like, yes, he has his badass moments, and he definitely is a threat, but at the end of the day, Ant-Man and Wasp still won. Now, if Ant-Man died, then I think it would have worked. If it was one of those things where it's like, hey, I don't have to win, we both just have to lose, and the thing shuts, and he kills Scott, and Scott basically, sacrifices himself for Hope and Cassie, and Kang's just still stuck there. Then that gives reasons for A, Kang's still around, B, Quantum Realm's still around, so because we got to get Kang out of there, and it gives a reason for the Quantum Realm to come back, so that way these characters, Veb and Jentora, it gives them reasons to actually give a shit about these characters, because Kang's still there, and Kang's gonna have to escape at some point. Or what I was honestly hoping for, which would have been a nice little clever way to do it, is he kills Scott, which I know, like, well, Sean, why do you want Ant-Man to die? It's because there's no fucking point. But is if, like, when Scott grabbed all the Pym particles to slam into the thing, is that he grabbed one. And he basically pressed it to make himself small, and he snuck through the portal as like a tiny.
Here's the other problem with this movie. It's like,
and they wouldn't have known any better.
The whole thing about this movie is, the whole story starts off back when Janet was in there, and she's like, I'm going to give up my chance to escape because I can't let this guy out because he's going to destroy entire worlds.
Yeah.
Okay. Then in the ending we got, Scott pushes Cassie through, and he stays back to fight him. He says, I don't have to win. I just need us both to lose.
Yeah.
Then Cassie opens a new portal, which for all they don't know that he's taking care of. They don't know what's going on. All they know is they're opening a new portal that he could just go through.
That too. That too. And I really hated that how they edited that ending, because like like at that point, I was like, oh, Hope and Scott are just gonna have to stay behind. Like they're just okay. That's how you get them written off, and then you can continue with Cassie, and you can have like Janet and Hank pop up here and there supporting roles. But that's how you're gonna write off Scott and Hope. But then the thing just opens up behind them, and they go, "Let's go home." And then it just fades to white, and we're back to the beginning of the movie with Scott walking around. I was like,
and my thing
"No,
is Janet and Hank and them, they don't know that he's taking care of. For all they know, they just open a portal and Kang's going to walk through it.
exactly."
And there's no way Janet's going to let that happen.
But I hated how they just went to white, and then we're back to. I was like, wait, no, what? No, don't. Why are we doing this? That was a shitty way
We
to
got to end on a happy note. Although, I mean, they obviously showed Scott struggling with, wait, what if I made things worse and things like that. But
then it was like,
they
don't
played it off.
worry about it, kind of thing. And I was like, no, once again, it continually makes this film feel like it didn't matter at the end, because it's not like he got a hold of the other Avengers and said, hey guys, I need to talk to you about this, so that way they become in the know. At the end of this, they're just living, back to my normal life kind of thing. There's no connective tissue to the rest of the freaking story, because the Kangs got cut off. Basically all this did was acknowledge the other Kangs. Fuck, we actually have to step up and start doing something. This whole film was basically nothing except for the post-credit scene is integrating that the Kangs are going to actually start doing shit with the Avengers or whoever at this point. That's all this film amounted to, which to me, as much as we like, hey, yeah, we liked it, in a nutshell, this movie is fucking kind of pointless. Which is kind of like most Ant-Man films. But like I said, we like them, but it is kind of a pointless fucking movie. I still think that my thing where, once again, me going, why are these better kind of thing, I still think that if he had grabbed one of the Pym particles and he snuck through the portal and he waited and got out, like, fuck Hope and Cassie, I'm not even going to fight them. I'm going to pass through the portal as an ant size. They're not going to know I'm there. And then you just have, like I said, post-credit scene, you have him back up into real size. It's like,
Here's my other thing. I was thinking early on in the movie, okay, they're down in the quantum realm for however long. Isn't a lot more time supposed to have passed?
It never said.
In the real world? Because they say that, because it used to be like, he thought it was 3 hours or whatever, 5 hours in the quantum realm, but it was really 5 years. When he was down there the first time.
Yeah.
And so in theory, it should be that kind of scale. But it's like they were down there for days.
Well, I think they said there was a crazy day. Because
even if it was one day, 24 hours, you should be a good 15 years in the future. And at one point I was even thinking, I wonder if they're going to come back out. Or here's my thing is, when we thought our original theory
where he went to their
Kang's going to escape, I thought that Kang's going to escape. But the reason we don't see there's all these other movies taking place and Kang Dynasty is still a couple of years away, the movie is because that's going to be the moment he came back out of Ant-Man. And I thought, oh, that'd be a clever way to do it, because
that actually would be a clever way to do it.
But of course, they didn't do that. Now, as far as we know, because as far as we know, no real time has passed. And
he even drops a line in the movie like, "We got to get you back. Your mom's gonna be crazy because we don't know how much time's passing."
Yeah, but they seem to have forgotten the whole thing where time passes differently down there. So who knows?
It was a throwaway line, because by the time they all got back through it, it made it seem like no time had passed. And it's like, no, that's not how that works. Because, like I said, it went straight to him walking down the street like it was every other day. I was like, no, like how much time's passed? Like, I'm sorry, I honestly, because they showed oh god, what's his name? FBI agent.
Oh, Randall Park?
Randall Park. They showed Randall Park in the beginning. Part of me was expecting them kind of to like bum rush the house, because like Cassie's mom's freaking out because they hadn't heard from him, kind of thing. Like they could have just added that and realized, oh, they've been gone for a week. They've been gone for a month or something. Just to show that the time had passed. But once again, it's like it didn't. The plot isn't working the greatest. In a way, like I like the cast, I like the characters, but it's the script.
Even a throwaway line in the beginning, when they had made this quantum thing, that they now have ways to control it so time doesn't pass differently or something. If they some kind of throwaway line,
they could have thrown that in. It would have been bullshit.
Oh, it would have been bullshit. It would have been lazy, but it would have at least explained it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now we got to talk about MODOK. I am super on the fence, but I'm leaning more one way over the other. So I want to go to you. What were your thoughts on fucking MODOK?
MODOK is hands down the stupidest thing in the entire MCU
Thank
of all
you,
time.
fucking God. Because when MODOK showed up and he had the helmet on, I was like, all right, that's cool.
I'm like that. If you're gonna put MODOK in a movie, just it's because nobody cares about MODOK. He's a tip of the hat to the comic book fans, people who know the character. It's like there's no way to do that in a real movie and not make it look fucking stupid. So I'm like, you're gonna make it this little mechanized thing which kind of has the face and the thing.
Yeah,
fine, that works.
all right, I was like, he's kind of a badass. And then he removes his mask, and I literally, this was me in the theater. I'm watching it, and I was like, okay, so it's what the fuck is Corey Stoll's bad guy character?
Yellow Jacket. What was the name?
Okay.
Darren. It was Darren.
Yeah, well, it's Darren, but I meant Yellow Jacket. I was like, okay, it's Yellow Jacket, but he's MODOK. I was like, all right, we can play that off. And then he removes the mask, and I literally was watching, I went,
yeah, well, because there was a shot in one of the trailers where you saw MODOK with a face, and I'm like, and I think I even said in a conversation with you, because it's like I think it might be like a screen with somebody's face on it, because like obviously it's not
like how Kang looks when he has his helmet on.
Yeah, like this is a machine, but then like somebody's face is on a screen who's, I don't know who's controlling it, or maybe it's an AI, something, like that. I'm like, it still looks stupid, but whatever. But then when they actually showed it, first of all, that it was Corey Stoll, like, oh, coincidence, this random character, and his face is all weird and deformed, and then you see that he actually had the little button, and he has the little hands and legs, and I'm like, it is not even close. This is the single stupidest thing in the entire MCU, and the MCU's had some dumb things in it, and I just hated every moment that MODOK was on screen.
It was one of those things where, yes, there's some funny lines. Yes,
not really.
Paul Rudd making the funny,
making fun of him. Yeah, I guess.
Like that was funny, but it all got neutered as soon as you would look at Corey Stoll's digital face. And it was just like, I can't take this seriously with his face like that. Now, if he had the fucking helmet on the entire time, I'd be like, all right, that's cool. That works. He's a badass. It's Corey Stoll, but it's the mask. It's fine. But then, like, when they're showing him, like what happens when you see his big head with a little tiny butt, and I'm just like,
just the entire character, man. Here's the thing: is if you have not watched the Hulu show,
I think I watched, how many episodes was it? Was it 10 episodes?
It was 6 or 10. It wasn't very long.
I think I got halfway through it, and I was like, it's fine, but
here's my thing: is if you want to do, that's the way to do MODOK, because it has to be comedic, because he looks fucking stupid as hell. You have Patton Oswalt voice him. You do it in animation, and if you're gonna do MODOK, that's the way to do him. And that show worked because it was what it was. But to try to put him in here and take him seriously as a character in here, and even give him like a redemption arc, and he plays a major role in the defeating.
We'll get to that
like, shit. Oh my! Literally every minute he's on screen, I'm like,
Part of me was hoping, because I knew David Dishmallen was going to play a different character. I was like, oh, if he plays MODOK, that'd actually be really cool. But then everyone kept telling me, no, it's Corey Stoll. I'm like, no, please don't let it be Corey Stoll. And I was like, because I wanted to be David Dishmallen to give him something more to do. And then when I saw it was him, I was like, fuck.
The more I think about MODOK, I kind of want to lower my rating on Letterboxd.
I kind of wanted to as well. I'm still going to give that 3.5. Because I still, like, the third act battle, as inconsequential as it was, I think this is the best use of Big Man or Big Ant-Man that they've used. I loved like how they utilized him in that, and like I said, it looked good for the most part. And like I said, I really like Jonathan Majors, and I think the cast outside of MODOK actually did a really good job. But goddamn, when they fucking have a redemption arc for MODOK, where like it's Cassie of all people.
I wanted to see Cassie defeat him, and she kind of did, but I wanted to see him just kill, and then that was the end of his character. But no,
actually, one thing I actually did like this, because I was like, I love that this is actually kind of callback. I like that Cassie was actually scared of him, because 6-year-old Cassie remembers him as the B guy who tried to kill me in my room. So like when you first found out that it was him, as much as I went like, ugh, I like you're going.
But that did make sense. She was scared of him, and then it made sense that she would be the one who basically would defeat him.
Who had to fight him, because
it was after that they kept going. I'm like, oh,
because she was running from him, because to her he is the boogeyman.
Yeah,
to a point. Which I was like, this is working. But then when she defeats him, and basically just like, stop being a dick. I don't know how. Just stop. And then he's like, my name is Darren. I'm like,
Yeah, and then suddenly, just because she says not to be a dick, suddenly he's going to be good in turn
Like,
and
oh my
help them
god,
out.
you're right. The whole me being the fucking villain in the first Ant-Man and trying to
Suddenly, he doesn't
overcome
hate Paul Rudd for trapping him down there for the rest of his life
we're
as
like
a.
we're like brothers. No, we're not. And that's not funny. Like Paul Rudd's expression is even he's like, are we actually buying this shit? And then I'm sorry, did he caress his pec when he was bringing his hand down? Did he do this to Ant-Man? Was it his hand just go and rest
I
here?
don't think
Fell
so.
down?
Yeah.
I don't know, but that whole scene was
I
just
although I did like the line, like, "At least I got to die in Avenger." He's like, yeah, sure."
sure you're an Avenger, but it's. I was like watching this. I was like, everyone's laughing, and
Oh,
I'm not.
hated every
And like
moment.
I started watching reviews as I was
You
driving
should,
home
Corey Stoll and the whole bookie man thing. I like it. Well, why couldn't he just be Corey Stoll,
because
Darren, Yellow Jacket
all
down
that
there?
Patton Oswalt MODOK, and they wanted to have that humor because it's still Peyton Reed. But it to me just every time he got on screen, I was like, keep the helmet on, keep the helmet on, keep the helmet, please keep the helmet
And
on.
in the middle of battles, he'd open it up like somebody could just shoot you in the face, dude.
Yeah, it's like they had a dare of how many times they could show this fucking image on screen. And I was like, does anyone else not
Awful.
think that this looks fucking stupid? And before you guys go, look at the comic book. The comic book's face looks better than what they did here. Like, I'm sorry, the helmet
And
looked
there are things that can work in a comic. The word comic is in it. Comic book, as in comedy.
the helmet.
It's supposed to look goofy.
You could have painted flesh tones on the helmet and made that work, and you could have done something like not Transformers, but like where like his mouth actually like did like animatronically like did this.
Mhm.
But as soon as you did that, I was like, you just
Yeah, no,
God
for
damn
me,
it.
it wasn't even that. The whole character shouldn't have been in the movie,
Like
unless it was just this robot. Unless it was just a robot.
it was so dumb. It was so dumb. But I'm seeing people going, yeah, MODOK was great. And I was like, no, you're gonna attack this movie for all this other stuff, but MODOK is the thing that you're positive about? No, that is the one negative of this movie, if there ever was one. Because I'm watching people do reviews like, yeah, the movie's messy. The first 30 minutes is all over the place and crap, but MODOK was fantastic. No, shut the fuck up. MODOK was the worst part of this damn movie. I'm trying to think of what else in the MCU equals up to MODOK. And I can think of things that we both dislike, but I don't think it's MODOK bad.
There's nothing in the MCU for me that's MODOK bad.
Nothing. Oh my god! And people are praising it, and I don't understand it. MODOK is fucking horrible. But it's. I think we pretty much covered everything. But I mean, it's one of those things. Like I said, by the end of this movie, I just felt like this movie didn't need to happen. I felt like they could have done a better. Like as good as Jonathan Majors' Kang was, I feel like that they could have. There's a better story out there that they could have introduced Kang. They did not have to do it in this movie. I think Ant-Man, the Wasp,
Honestly,
the only thing that came out of this is that Cassie is a fucking superhero now. That's the only thing that came out of this movie is that Cassie's a superhero, and the other Kangs are now going to start either joining the fight in 3 years when the
you know what it feels like to me? It feels like they introduced Kang in Loki. Clearly, Kang's gonna play a part in Loki season
probably
2.
the main driving force of
Which is where he belongs.
Yeah.
But I think they're like, well, we can't have things be just in the TV show. We need to have him featured in the movies too, so people maybe who don't watch TV shows will still follow it when you get to Kang Dynasty. And it's like, so the only reason this movie exists is for those credit sequences, which you could, like I said, could have plucked that out and put it on a different movie, and it wouldn't have made a difference.
Because, like I said, I'm not trying to go super dark with this, but to have all 4 of them, or no, 5 of them, had to have all 5 of them get out of this scot-free was the biggest mistake. Because you, once again, just proved that Kang is beatable at some point.
And Michael Douglas even wants his character to die.
Yeah, it's like Hank should have died.
He even said in interviews, like, if they asked him if they do another one, he's like, only if they'll let me die this time. Like Harrison Ford used to do in Star Wars. Like,
should have died because Hank was inconsequential in the film.
Yeah.
Hope, I mean, she was utilized, but she was barely used in the film. Scott should have died because Scott fucking got just destroyed in that fight. He should not have walked away from that. Honestly, the only people that probably should have survived was probably Cassie and Hope, and maybe Janet. But by keeping everyone alive, they say you basically just made Kang not nearly as scary, or as even he's a Thanos level threat. Nah, apparently he's not. unless you're fighting 1,000 of them, which we could very well happen. But then at that point, you gotta have the superheroes somehow balance out the scales and find ways to take them all out. So that way it makes it balanced. Because at that point, there's no reason why the king shouldn't just overthrow everything. But once again, the bottom line is the supposed scariest version of Kang, Ant-Man and the Wasp beat him. Literally, a lot of people, want to shit on Hawkeye and Black Widow, but like Hawkeye and Black Widow can kill you with no problem because they're trained to kill people. Fucking Scott and Hope aren't, and they were able to beat Kang, and that is the biggest problem with outside of MODOK, with Quantumania, is by the end of the day, this movie, while enjoyable in its points, big picture wise, this fucking movie I think hurt more than it helped. So it's one of those things.
I didn't feel like it hurt. I just feel like it's completely inconsequential. It like doesn't.
Like I said, it's another one of those movies. Like, unless something comes back to this, that storyline wise, that makes us need to go back to watch this outside of the post credit scene, which Kings will start showing up. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
This is another one that whenever you have to go back and do a Marvel rewatch, you can pretty much skip Ant-Man and the Wasp, and you can skip. You might not. Well, depending on what they do with Ghost and Thunderbolts, you might need to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp now, but you really don't need to watch this. The only thing at the end of the day is that Cassie has a suit now. That's it. But the Ant-Man movies really aren't needed to be watched if you're going through a walkthrough for any of these. They really aren't. Because Ant-Man and the Wasp, the only thing you need to know is like there's Ghost and that Scott got thrown into the quantum realm. And that's it.
That Janet got out.
But if Janet's ever going to be a factor in any of the other films, and she's only a factor in Quantumania, then the Janet part doesn't matter either, to a point. Because it would be important if this Kang got out because there's that connection to Janet. Mm-hmm. But this Kang died, so there really is no need for Janet anymore in terms of the story, because it's not like she's fighting. I mean, she did fight in this, and like I said, Michelle Pfeiffer looked good. Now it's probably a stunt double, but still, character-wise, it looked good. But by the end of the day, this movie just doesn't matter in the grand scheme. Just like the Eternals right now, it doesn't fucking matter in the grand scheme.
I hope that one continues to not matter.
The thing is that we know that the Eternals are showing up in Loki season 2 because they're on.
Oh God, are they?
Yep, they are. They literally have shown pictures of them on set for Loki season 2.
I kind of don't want to watch it.
I'm still gonna stay with my score. Like I said, it's easier for us to attack the things that we like than it is to pray, especially when we're on a spoiler review, because we're really focusing on the stuff we don't like. Mm-hmm. But like I said, in our non-spoiler review, we still enjoyed it. It's just there's a lot of things that they could have done better or different to make this movie hit better. And that's kind of the long and short of it. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm probably gonna leave my score where it is at a 3.5. MODOK almost makes me want to drag it down an extra half star just for that, but
yeah, it's but yeah, that's gonna be our episode, guys. We hope you guys enjoy this non-spoiler and spoiler review for everyone who's still stuck around for the spoiler aspect of the show. Feel free to leave comments. What did you guys think? Did you like MODOK? Did you like the story that you guys got in this? Do you think Kang has kind of been diminished a little bit based off of this movie? Let us know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, so that we guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the channel. Coming up next, we have this week's episode of Cinemasochism, which is a very, very horrible comic book movie based because we wanted to do something around Ant-Man. Trust me, we watched it. It's really, really bad. It's really bad. Plus, also this week's Weekly Crusaders, where we talk about 2 movies that came out during this week in movie history. Maybe we'll have them out this weekend. This is kind of a busy weekend for myself and Brian, so we're going to shoot those as soon as we're able to, and then we'll have them out. Probably more like next week, though, to be honest. Movies. I don't think is there anything coming out next week, or is it Ant-Man taking a second week?
Next week's Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear. We are definitely going to have a Cocaine Bear review, whether it's with me and Brian or just me. We are definitely going to have a review for Cocaine Bear.
There's also we have a Ghost is next week on Netflix.
Yep, we got that. And a lot of streaming movies that are just dropping
tomorrow. Well, today when you're watching this, Sharper is going to be on. Is that Apple or Amazon?
I think that's Apple.
I think it's Apple. Yeah,
I think it's Apple. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff popping up now. Whether we shoot reviews for them, that's a totally different story, because there's just the movies really have to do something. They either have to really, really be bad, or they got to be really good.
One of the best chance of it's Cocaine Bear. We'll see.
Cocaine Bear, I'm definitely going to do a review.
You'll do a review.
regardless.
Maybe I'll be there. We'll see.
It's one of Brian's most anticipated films for the last 2 years. It's jumped up on mine. Brian's gonna have to do. I know Brian hates new reviews. You're gonna have to do a review for that because you've talked about Cocaine Bear for 2 years. You're hopping on for the review. We'll have that done on Thursday night, late Friday morning next week. But yeah, till next time, I'm Sean Wasp Crew. That is Brian Michaels. We are the Movie Crusaders, and go watch the movies, guys.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.